All right, here we go. Welcome. Welcome to the SPY T trading webinar. You know, SPY T trading is a very specific style of trading. There are three parts to it. It has a very specific timeline. It's a specific style of trading using a very specific signal. And I'm going to get into all of that. But first, we kind of need to figure out, is SPY T right for you? Look, if you want to be able to grow your portfolio 25, 50, 100% a month, it might be right for you. But there's more than that. Some other things you need to consider. Look, between January 21st through March 31st, I grew my test portfolio about just under 1,000%. And that was from a very small amount of money, and it grew over time. And I really want to impress upon you, this is about growing your portfolio over time. And understanding who SPY T trading is for is important because it may not be right for you. You may like the idea of growing your portfolio, but it's really for people who want more control of their portfolio. And they have found that money managers and financial planners are just not doing the trick for them. And they just don't want to get into day trading. They don't have the desire or even any kind of skill or inclination to get involved in day trading. But you do want the opportunities that the market can offer you. And that is why I created SPY T. And I'll share more about SPY tomorrow specifically as we get into this. But first, I want to just say, look, the best part of this webinar is in the question and answer section that is coming a little bit later. And when we get into that, it'll probably answer a lot more of your questions. But first, I want to explain what SPY T trading is. And for some people, it's free for people who just want to find out on the front page of SPY tomorrow what the directional signal is. And we'll get more into that in a few moments. But there are some people who want more information, such as the confidence levels, what we refer to as the switch, which is really the underlying market mood. Again, the confidence level of the up or down, the AI, the artificial intelligence portion, and all the numbers that we offer that different members use for different types of trading. Although we use SPY tomorrow for a specific type of trading, you can use the SPY T signals for many types of trading, which maybe we can get into a little bit more in the question and answer. So, let's first get into SPY T and what it is. How do you benefit? How do you benefit from SPY T? Well, first of all, you know, you're going to have a system that is easy to use with a very simple directional approach that can offer great rewards. And basically what it is a short-term swing trade. And it's a 2-to-1 options ratio, and it uses ETFs, SPY as its foundation. Although we do use some others such as QQQ and IWM as we have developed SPY tomorrow. But you know, let's get into why we do these different things. First of all, the up and down signal is showing a pressure. We measure the pressure using our algorithms at the end of the trading day. And the measurement of that pressure gives us a good signal as to what might happen at the open of the next day. And so a swing trade in general is based off of signals. It can be overnight. It could be over a few days, a few weeks, or even a few months, depending on the signals you're using. We're using a signal that tries to give us an idea of what might happen at the open the next day. And it's generally over 75% correct. So with that knowledge, we put on a swing trade overnight using options. And what we do is we use a 2-to-1 ratio of options. And so 1 for protection and 2 up for growth. So if SPY tomorrow says, hey, it's going to be an up day tomorrow, well, then there's about a 75% chance based on history that it'll be up tomorrow. So what we'll do is we'll buy 2 calls, and calls are options that we think are going up for SPY or another ETF, and I'll explain ETFs in a moment, or a stock that you want to use. And we'll buy 1 put as a protection. Now, if SPY tomorrow said at the end of the day it's going to be a down day tomorrow, we'd buy 2 puts and 1 call. And yes, it does limit the trajectory up, but it also saves you from a big down for those 25% of the days that it may be wrong, because nothing will be right all the time, and it's especially true with SPY when you're doing an overnight swing trade. The reason being is that, look, news changes, economics, political unrest, weather. There are many things that could change the mood of the market overnight. And so when we're having high volume news days, sometimes you need to put a little bit less into SPY tomorrow because the confidence level is not as high, because it could change overnight very easily, and we don't want to find ourselves on the wrong side of a trade. So there are many ways to approach this, and we'll talk more about that in the question and answer. You know, one thing that I thought about, we're talking about the people who are right for SPY tomorrow. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, wow, there are people who do 25% a month, 50% a month in their portfolios and more. And honestly, they don't need SPY tomorrow. So there are people who don't need this. This is for people who really just want a simple system to continue to grow their portfolio. And, look, if you're correct 55% of the time using SPY tomorrow, you're going to grow your portfolio. And that's why when it's 75% correct most of the time, now some months it's 65%, some months it's 85% or better, well, then great. We have great months and then we have okay months. It's very rare that we have a negative month based on our current history. And, we'll have maybe a down week, but generally and definitely some down days, but not an overall down month, because the math, for the most part, is on our side and it works out. So we don't get upset over the day ups or downs. We're excited if it's up and sad if it's down. Just let it go, and we kind of watch the week and how does that week progress, and then the month progress, and then we set benchmarks based off of that. Again, currently the SPY tomorrow system is about 77% correct over well over 150 trades, and it's getting better with the AI system that we've been implementing for our members. So that's something to consider too, because members do have this opportunity to see what the AI says, as well as our current algorithm and our older algorithms. We keep some of the older ones running so you can kind of match them up. I like to do that because I like to have confirmations. So how did I come up with this idea? And this kind of leads into that, having these 3 different algorithms or a few different algorithms to work off of. And that's how about the beginning of 2020, I opened up an old account. I opened up an old trading account, a brokerage account. And there's a little money in there, and I started to play with it and started trying some of my old ideas, and I noticed something. I noticed that there were no fees, or very low fees for my trades, which meant I could take bigger risks and try new ideas. And I started doing that. I started playing with some math, and eventually I started noticing something that I refer to as pressure. And I found this at different points throughout the day during trading, but then I noticed a correlation to my last reading of the day and how the market opened the next day. And so I kept playing with it, and I had ups and downs, and I continued to try different ways to massage these numbers and test these numbers and triangulate is really the best word I can use. Ultimately, triangulating different groups of data. And kind of in the way I said there was a new algorithm, an older algorithm, and an AI, looking at all 3, and let's say 2 out of the 3 said up, well then that would be an up call. And it's a similar kind of a thing, except it's using a lot of different data and data points to do exactly that, to give us that call more consistently. See, I eventually opened this up in the fall of 2020, Spy Tomorrow. That's when I founded spytomorrow.com. I wanted to share these ideas with people. And when I launched it, something happened. It broke. And so I tried to figure things out, and I did more triangulation, and I thought I figured it out. We're on a good run. And then I launched it again in the spring of 2021, and it broke. And so I need to figure out why, because it seemed like the numbers would flip on me. Positives were negatives, negatives were positive. What's going on here? And eventually it turned into what I refer to as the switch, which is something I give people access to in terms of, switch is kind of like an underlying mood. If you see switches regularly, that's going to mean that you're going to be down probably 6 to 7 days out of 10, for example, or 7 to 8 days out of 10. Or if the switch is positive, you're more likely to have more positive days. And that, anyway, but it's a number that I have to put in there. And it's turning out that AI doesn't need that switch, but my algorithm does. And so I figured that out. I spent a whole summer of 2021 figuring that out, did a longer test, said I am not going to launch this thing again until I am ready. And when I was ready, that was in the new year, over 100 trades. It was solid numbers, and I launched it. And from there, I've continuously tried to triangulate more and find new things that we can do to improve it, such as the AI and more triangulation and so forth. And it's gotten better and better and better, but it's been good since January, February, launching it February. That trade from about mid-January through the end of March, again, up 1,000%. And that's a real activity. That's really happened that way by trading overnight using the Spy Tomorrow signals. Now, there's something you should know is that I could have done better or I could have done worse. You're still trading. And the fact is, two different traders could have two different results. And I'll certainly get more into that in a few moments. But I didn't do anything drastic. Whenever I lose a lot, it's usually my error more than the error of Spy Tomorrow by trying to fix things and make things up. So it's important to do a few things that I'll talk about as we get into the question and answer, because they will really save you and help you improve your results with Spy Tomorrow. Okay, so here we are. We are here for the question and answer, but before I get into the question and answer, I kind of want to review the benefits of SpyT trading. Just to review it, kind of break it all down for you again so you have an idea before we get into these question and answer. And the first one is, I think, the best one. It's a high probability of high profitability. Let me say that again. High probability of high profitability. It's math. Bottom line is it's math, and we're using a trend or a correlation that tends to reign true overnight. And we're able to give ourselves some confidence levels of how likely that trend may work or that correlation will work. For example, we have a correlation number that goes from 1 to about 27, I believe. And generally, it ranges in the 1 to 10 range and sometimes goes over 10 up to maybe even 20. If it's a 1, it does correlate to, higher the number, greater the chance it's correct. So if it's a 1, it's about 65% correct. Still better than 55%. And if it's a 5 or higher, it's about 77, 80% correct. And if it's over a 10, over the last couple months, it's been 100% correct. That's not going to last forever, but it's good to know. And you can consider your position sizes based on that confidence level if you're a member, and that's very helpful. 2, you're in control of your portfolio. Now, you may want to just take a part of your portfolio. Let's say you have $10,000. Let's say you have $100,000. Don't take your whole $100,000. Take a 10%, 5% risk. And 5 or 10% of your portfolio can be for high risk investments. And I would consider this a high risk investment. Although the numbers pan out, the numbers do well, I would still, before you really are confident in trading this way, consider it a high risk investment. Personally, I consider it the best investment because it does better than my other portfolios that other people have managed. So, but that's because I've been doing this for a while, and I've gone through the evolution, and I know how to trade it. I've traded this way a lot of times over almost 2.5 years now. So I know how to trade this, and so I have that advantage in the trading. But really, I'm not doing anything that's real tricky. So that's important to note too. You don't need to understand technicals. A lot of trading systems, you need to understand technicals. All you need to do is look on the front page of SPY tomorrow, and at the end of the day, just a few minutes after the close for non-members, you will see an up or down signal. Free, no charge. And for many brokerage accounts, you can still trade about 10-15 minutes after the market closes. And some people can trade more than that. But for the most part, most accounts, about 10-15 after, you can stop trading. So you can use that signal to buy for the next morning. And members can see it before the market closes. Usually 5-10 minutes before the market closes, the team posts the up or down signal. Okay, but you don't have to understand technicals. You just have to understand up or down. Okay, there's a controlled downside. And as I showed you in that chart before, I'll put it up again. The downside is limited. See, if you just went directional, and this is where I got in the most trouble while learning to trade this, is I was just going directional. I mean, look, it's 75% correct, some months 80% correct, and I did really well. That when I went from January to the end of March, I was going directional. So that wasn't pure SPY-T trading the way we do it today with the 2-to-1 option. That was me going directional. If it said up, I went up. If it went down, I followed it down. And if we said up and it went down, well, we had a problem. And remember, this was the beginning of the Ukraine war, so there are a lot of up and down crazy days during that time in news events, and it still made it through just fine. So I think that overall, I think I did do some back testing, and overall doing the SPY-T method, I probably would have made more than 1,000% if I would have used the method we're using today, because the downs wouldn't be as big. I wouldn't have lost half of my money or 60% of my money. And that's why we have to understand position sizing in our tolerance. So we'll get more into that, especially in the question and answer. There's no stress compared to day trading. I think that's important. I mean, day trading is highly stressful. And the problem is a lot of people will cut their wins short and let their losses ride, thinking it's just going to come back. Just wait enough time and it goes down, 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 and it doesn't win. So these are things you need to consider in this process. What's your risk tolerance? It's just so important. And the stress of day trading, the little moves, taking these little wins, and then having the risk of these big losses, it's something that I prefer to use the SPY-T trading method. I'll just do my overnight trade and let it be done once I am out of that trade the next morning. That's really, I have found the best way to go about it for consistency. And I got to tell you, I would say, and there's no math behind this other than the fact that less than 10% of people who day trade actually do well at it. And those who do well at it can do really well at it. I mean, there's great opportunities there if you're even keeled and you don't let the emotion get involved. And the nice thing about SPY-T trading is the emotion can be there, but you can't do anything about it till the next morning. And so you're not getting in and getting out pre and before you have to do this. So, that's something to consider. So less stress. The benefits for members, of course, is having access to ask questions in the SPY-T chat, the AI that is developing and is looking really good, by the way. The confidence level, we have our confidence levels, we have our switches, knowing the underlying mood of the market, and of course the presentations of all this information and the breakdown of all the numbers. That's also very important and helpful. So let's get into the question and answer. It's my favorite part, the question and answers. Okay, let's get right into it. Do you have to trade SPY, S-P-Y? And the answer is no. SPY, again, is an exchange-traded fund. And exchange-traded fund is basically a basket of stocks or a sector and that it represents, and it's traded. It's like a mutual fund, except it's traded like a stock. And so the SPY, which SPY Tomorrow is founded off of, although we do use other signals from other ETFs, such as the QQQ and the IWM now, the SPY represents the S&P 500. The QQQ, for example, represents the internet and the tech stocks. And the IWM represents the Russell 2000. But you can also have the energy sector, the XLE, or the financial sector, XLF. And there are many different sectors of ETFs and reasons, missions for each one of these ETFs. But we generally recommend that you use SPY or QQQ or IWM because, one, they tend to go with SPY, and you could even use a stock if you have a favorite stock. But it should generally, if SPY goes up, your stock goes up. If SPY goes down, your stock goes down. And it should correlate the same way. And I recommend the ETFs such as SPY and QQQ because they're highly liquid. They're easy to buy, easy to sell when you want to buy them, when you want to sell them. And that can be really important when the market is fluctuating a lot. And so you want something that has high volume. And a narrow bid-ask range, you don't want that to be really far apart, which you'll find with specific stocks. So I like what SPY and QQQ and IWM specifically have to offer. When do you buy the options? Buy the options right at the close. Right at the close, like literally seconds before it closes. Now, sometimes if the market is going solidly up, I sometimes kind of have this feeling, and this is through my experience, and you'll have to work the same way. Through my experience, sometimes it's going straight up. Right after it closes, it may settle down. I may just wait till a few minutes after the market closes before I buy. However, I would recommend you start off buying before the market closes, right at the close, the last 20 seconds before it closes, and then you'll be kind of right at the point at which that number it closes for the next day. So if you see in after hours it's going up, you know that your options are going in the right direction if it was a up signal. Or if it's going down, you're going the right direction for possible profitability the next day. But again, right then, after a while, you'll get a good sense of when to buy right for you for your style of trading. We offer a very specific style of trading with SPY-T, as mentioned, but there are other ways to use these up and down numbers. More so, for some traders, some members are much more sophisticated than I am in the way they trade. And so I offer this simple technique that works. But if you have a much more complex technique, you can use those numbers your own way and buy when it's right for you. And then the next question, when do you sell? And I sell in the morning, first thing, first few minutes. But over time, you may start to have your own signals that will help you decide when is the best time to trade the calls and the puts that you have. But my recommendation is once you sell and go on with your day. Don't get caught up in the what if. What if I had held my calls longer? That happened today. Actually, I would have made a lot more money today if I would have held on to my calls just a half hour. But I didn't. The signals that I use said get out, and it was the right move. There's nothing wrong with what I did. But guess what? Sometimes the market continues on without you. Don't try to fix your mistakes. Mistakes will happen, and that wasn't even a mistake. But sometimes you will make a mistake. You'll sell something too early or accidentally or the wrong thing or whatever it may be. Just let it go. Let it go. Take your lumps and move on. Because I got to tell you, I have turned $100 mistakes into $1,000 mistakes, and that feels even worse. I trust me. It can happen. I don't want it to happen to you. Again, that's why we have those safety options in our plan. Do you have to use the 2-to-1 ratio? That's up to you. I think you can go directional. I don't recommend it, but if you do the math and it works for you, that's fine. Directional means if SPY tomorrow says up, you just buy calls. You don't buy any safety puts. But in some situations, look, maybe you want to be a little more conservative. So let's say you bought 4 calls and normally you just buy 2 puts, again 2-to-1 ratio, but maybe this time the confidence level is a 1. And because the confidence level is a 1, you're going to go 4-to-3. More in that direction, but you have some good safety in case it flies the other direction. Not a bad way to go. So these are things you'll have to consider. You can develop over time. Again, there are many ways to approach it, and you'll find what is right for you over time. That's the best way. I can just give you the foundation and go from there. What sell signals do I use? There are a few things you can do. I use moving averages. I use money flow. Sometimes MACD, but I haven't been using that for a while, but that's a good one. You'll find some signals that are available. There are many, many signals out there. And the reason you might want to pay attention to some signals when when the market opens is that, let's say, for the sake of argument, SPY tomorrow said it's going up, but it went down and it just shot down. The market shot down at the open. Well, you have that protective put, and that put made money. So maybe you have a signal to watch when possibly the market's going to come back up. And so what you would do is sell that put when you see the market going back up and let those 2 calls ride back up. And quite possibly you could make money on a day in which SPY was wrong. That takes some skill. It takes time to learn, but it is still possible to make money on both sides. There are days in which the market goes up and down, and you could make money on your calls and your puts. Again, that can get into more of a day trading mentality, and maybe in that first half hour you do have that day trading mentality before you go off to work on with your day. That's fine, but just know that you have a chance of losing, and you could lose the money you put in there at the time if you are not skilled. So practice. And one of the things I think you should really consider is using a journal, maybe even paper trade. Go to the front page of spytomorrow.com and pretend to buy options for the next day. Some systems even give you a paper trading platform to work with. I know Ameritrade, their Thinkorswim system, gives you a paper trading platform that you can play with and see how you would do, and try it for maybe 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks and see where you end up after 2 weeks. And you very well might be surprised. Give it a month. And after a month, if you're positive, if you're up 25%, 50, or doubled your money, it all depends on the position sizes you use. We can talk more about that. But again, you have this control, and you can make these decisions of how aggressive you want to be using SPY tomorrow. Okay, well, what's the advantage of membership? We kind of covered this already, but I'll answer it again with, look, access is the biggest thing. Access to the signals before the market close, the confidence levels, which are really important to me. Of course, the breakdown of all the numbers, and the AI version, is really been doing a good job, and it very well may surpass my algorithm that I created over these last couple of years. It's using the same data set. So you have to understand it's going to be looking at the same type of data. So it should correlate about the same direction, but not always. And quite often when the AI is saying one direction, my algorithm is saying another direction, it's either a mixed day, in other words, they are both right. And what I mean by both right is that sometimes we may say up, but the market opens down, but then immediately goes up. So what happens in that first half hour? And beyond the half hour, then you just need to take another reading, which we don't offer during the day. We don't offer daytime readings at this point in time. It is a goal down the road, but right now we don't. So you'd have to take a new reading. But During that first half hour, we're saying that the pressure is up or the pressure is down. It may be that way at open, but maybe you'll have to wait a few minutes before it drops, and then you can make your money. But then it could pop back up and go up and down. So we like to, we like to be cautious. We like to share the information. I share information on Twitter. I release the up and down signal on Twitter right after the close. And of course, the SPY Tomorrow community, we can go back and forth in SPY chat too. So that's very helpful. Yeah, we have our own chat system that we can use. And I mostly just post there right now. Some members will comment once in a while, but mostly they just look for my postings, updates on what's going on. Okay, do you trade over weekends? That's a good question. And the answer is yes. It does still correlate. Yes, there is more time in between Friday and Monday that things could go wrong. The pressure and mood of the market could change. But honestly, it doesn't. It often holds all the way through to that Monday. But, maybe a 3-day weekend, you may want to consider a smaller position size. And I know I've mentioned position size a few times here. So let me kind of share what that's about. A position size means, look, if you took $1,000 and you took 50% of that and did your SPY T trade with that, that's a 50% position size. And if you went 30%, that would be a more conservative position size. And if you went 80%, that would be a more aggressive position size. And especially if you're going directional, you probably want to work with maybe 10, 5, 10, maybe the most 20% of your portfolio. But using SPY T method with that underlying number, you'll be able to say, look, maybe the max loss is 15%. And if you do a 50% position size, well, then really the max loss will be about 7.5% of your portfolio. And you need to ask yourself, is that okay? What is your risk tolerance? It's really important. You need to have that conversation. And so knowing your position sizes, and many of us use the confidence level to help dictate what our position size will be. So if it's a 1, it's a much smaller position size. If it's an over a 10, we're a little more aggressive. As of the last couple of months, when it's been over 10, it's been 100% correct. That won't last forever, but most of the time we're gonna put more in. And look, if we're doing a SPY T trade, we're not gonna lose more. If it's totally the other direction, we're not gonna lose more than maybe 15%, 10, 15%. And again, after going directional for so long, I was used to losing 20, 30, 40% of my trade regularly. So yeah, it kind of strengthens that stomach to be able to do those things. But when you know that the math is in your favor and you just keep moving forward over time, then you're going to be okay. And you're just going to know you're going to have wrong days, down days. It's just going to happen. But the math is in your favor. Okay, next one. What happens if SPY Tomorrow signal is wrong? We've kind of covered this in this conversation. Again, you could sell your put if SPY Tomorrow said up and it went down. You could sell your put based on a specific signal and maybe follow your calls up and maybe lessen your loss. You may not make back your loss, but you could lessen it, or you could just get out. Just get out and wait for the next day. Quite often in the beginning, that's probably your best bet until you have a system down that is right for you. And maybe you don't want a system. You want to buy at night, sell in the morning, be done with it, and whatever happens. And that's just fine. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, can you trade for me? No, we can't trade for you. We are an educational media company. That's what I own. I own a media company. And I do a lot of different types of work in terms of education and media, from blogging to video and podcasting through the years. But for the most part, we're just offering information for you to use on your own. And so we can't trade. We don't have the license. We're not financial professionals in any way, shape, or form. I'm a guy who's come up with an algorithm, with a system, and a few different ways to help to give us a good clue as to how the market might open tomorrow, and it has developed a trading strategy that tends to work really well with it. Is it the only trading strategy? Absolutely not. There are many ways to trade with that information. And that's important to understand. As I've mentioned, two traders can have totally different results with the same information. Okay, how much should I trade? That goes back to the position size and risk tolerance conversation we just had. You just have to know where your gut is. Can you lose 10% of your portfolio and not worry about it? Is it going to just take you down? Are you going to find yourself in a corner weeping if you lose 10% or 20% of your portfolio, even though you know you could make that back if you just stick with the plan? So you need to consider that. And so start small. The best thing you can do is just start small and work your way up with confidence. I think one of the best things that I've learned in talking with other traders is, look, we have to know, when I say tolerance level, you know, you and I, maybe you could lose $10 and it's no big deal. Some people can lose a $100 bill and it's no big deal. So if you see your stock portfolio go down $50, that may be 20% of your stock portfolio or the portfolio you're using in your SPY-T trading. And hey, you can deal with that. But when you lose 20% and your portfolio is $100,000, and so 20% is now $20,000, you may not be able to handle that, although the percentage was the same. Percentage was exactly the same, and the math is the same, but losing $20,000 versus $50, you have to know where you are, and that's why that's so important to understand your risk tolerance when you get involved in this. Okay, do I need a special account is the question. Yes. You need a brokerage account. You know, there's Robinhood and Ameritrade, among others. I use Ameritrade, and you know, use the system that works best for you. But yes, you need a brokerage account. Again, we can't trade for you, and we don't offer such a service. We're not financial people at all. Okay, how much is the SPY membership? Yeah, didn't even mention that. The SPY membership is $99 per month. And quite honestly, you should be able to make that back without any problems at all if you just follow the system and go with us and trade overnight, do what you're supposed to do, don't take risks, don't try to fix anything, just go with the plan. You'll make your $99 back and more every month. And you know, I can't guarantee anything because the market is the market. And there is a question that somebody asked me the other day, could I lose everything? I don't think it's on this list. No, it's not on this list. Could I lose? Oh yeah, there it is. It's about one of the last ones. Could I lose all my money? And yes, you could, but it'd be tough because of those limits underneath. Losing 10, 7, 10, 15%, we'd have to have a lot of days in a row of being wrong for you to lose all of your account money. Could you lose it if you took a lot of risks and tried to fix it when it was wrong, and you know, you made a mistake and tried to fix another thing with another thing? Yes, you could lose your money that way. And I have, doing exactly that. See, one thing I haven't mentioned, the reason why that account was $250 is because it was much more than that. Like a lot more than that. But I tried to fix a lot of things. And while I was experimenting with SPY Tomorrow, I was trying different things, and things weren't working, so I tried to fix them rather than just waiting for the next day. And I whittled my account down to $250. And then I said, you know what, or $225. And I said, okay, SPY Tomorrow is working, and I hadn't developed the SPY-T trading system yet, but I was using SPY Tomorrow as my signal. And I said, I'm just going to go with it, do what I'm supposed to do, and I grew the account over that 2-month experiment over almost 1,000%. So it works, unless you don't work it. If you don't work it, if you think you know better than the system, I found out the hard way that that could be the detriment of your account. So that's probably the faster way to lose your money than actually following the system. Okay. How much money should you start with? Again, risk tolerance, maybe $500 or $1,000 is a good place to start. Remember, I started that one trading through, $250. But in the beginning, I had to trade most of that, maybe 80% of of that amount, 75% of that amount, so of the $225 to actually get things moving. And then I pulled back and got a little more conservative. But in the beginning, I was right out of the gate with, just with high tolerance because I know I wanted to get where I wanted to go. And then I moved back, and then it was maybe 30% of the total amount, and then it continued to grow. And so again, risk tolerance is important, but the bottom line is growth over time. And you don't have to be rich tomorrow. You don't have to make all your money tomorrow. Just let it grow. Let it grow over time. And in the end, one day, a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll be very happy at where you're sitting. So things to consider. And maybe take some of your winnings out and put them into dividend stocks, for example. There are a lot of ways to go about this. You don't have to trade that whole account. Once you get to a certain level, maybe take some for income and take some for other investing. Maybe you invest in real estate or invest in other stocks or gold, whatever it may be that you want to invest in. So it doesn't all have to stay in that account, and you can build your wealth and diversify over time. So I highly recommend that. Okay, how much should I expect to make? This goes back to that two traders thing. Look, two traders can have the exact same information and have completely different results. So if you started with 225 back in January and you went all the way to March 31st to see what you could do with that money, you may have done better than I did. There are many much more sophisticated traders than I am within the group and around the world who could take $225 and turn it into $5,000 in about 10 weeks. So, it just depends. So I would say, look, have a goal. I think it's very realistic for you to be able to make, say, 25% on your account per month. If you're maybe trading 50% of your account when you're doing the 2-to-1 ratio, but 50% or even doubling is not unheard of, and actually that's kind of my goal. I try to be 50 to 100% per month. Some months are better, and some months are a little bit below that, but I haven't had a losing month as of yet. Could it happen in some way? It's possible, but here's the thing. We have that protective put. If SPY tomorrow said up, and we bought 2-to-1, let's say I bought 4 calls and 2 puts, and the market tanked, just tanked to a level we've never seen before, I would actually make money because those calls would become worthless, but those puts would keep increasing in value. So the risk of losing it all because the market completely goes crazy one direction, the opposite direction the other, if it does, you actually end up winning in the end. So that's why, again, I recommend that 2-to-1 ratio in the SPY-T trading method. Okay, last thing to just consider is, look, as I mentioned, 2 traders could have 2 different results, but take the time to test. Test this out. Test SPY tomorrow out. Test on the front page of SPY tomorrow and do some paper trading. Keep a journal. See how it would work for you. And then test, once you get some money, just test it lightly. Test a little bit in the real world. How do you react when it's time to buy? How do you react when it's time to sell? This is important to know. Again, you may be right, but you may not have sold in time. So you need to make sure that you know how to do all these things correctly. And so start at a small level first. Keep track of what was working. Keep track of what was not working. Keep track of those things you're never going to do again. And again, I can't say it enough times, don't try to fix bad trades. Let the emotion go and start again at the end of the day with a new trading cycle. And if you want to join SPY tomorrow, you can. And you have all that access. And I hope to see you there. I hope to see you as what we refer to as SPYs on the inside. We'll see you on the inside, spytomorrow.com. Have a great day.